all seen over the years when Dad and Mom used to do slideshows. This is a picture of sheep trailing out of Trail Canyon up.
I thought it was snow.
No, those are sheep. They're trailing out of Trackite Canyon, going up the Slick Rock and into the main water sands down there on the Trackite Log where we run our cows now. So I thought that was pretty neat picture. So that's the one I started with. So
how many sheep was there?
wild.
Looks like a lot.
Count them.
10,000?
Oh, between Grandpa Hugh and Emery, they had, I think, probably 3 herds that had 2,000 each. 3 or 4 herds. So they ran from the Henry Mountains. They ran on track allotment, which the base ranch was the Cat Ranch, and then they owned the private land, the Crockett Place down there where the corrals are old corrals up the mountain. But yeah, so they had quite a few sheep. So this King Company and all this history, you can go on Family Search and go under Hugh or Emery, and there's if you go under Memories, it'll say LeVar Isaacson Family. If you click on that, you can read the first 40 pages, and then there's another 40 and another 20 there they're just, you know, you can just see on the pages. But if you, LeVar Isaacson put this on Family Search, this history, which is really neat because it's the history of Emery King as told by my and Camille's grandpa Hugh. Hugh was the oldest of 9 children. Well, I don't know how many. Anyway, Hugh was the oldest, and so his younger brother Dwight, who was a lawyer, interviewed him at one time all about their dad and stuff. So it's really interesting if you want to go read that. Most of this presentation is from that, taken from that. So the Kings, Thomas Rice King was born back east, and his mother, his mother married a Rice, and then Thomas was born, Thomas Rice. His mother died at childbirth or shortly after. The father couldn't raise a baby, so he had his sister, who was married to the king, adopted him. So his name's Thomas Rice, and then King because he's adopted. So he was a pioneer, came across the plains. He settled, he acquainted with Brigham Young, and he settled in Delta, Fillmore, Miller County, and he was pretty important there. He had several boys, several kids. Volney was one of them. Volney was called by, Thomas was called by Brigham Young to start the Kingston United Order in Kingston. So he and his family, his sons moved over there. And the United Order lasted 34 years, or I don't know how long. There was 30-something families in it. As I was reading this history, they said, the book, The Kings of the Kingdom, is a history of our family, the Kings. And Grandpa Hugh said it was kind of, Kings of the Kingdom had a derogatory Kingston United Order was the Kings, and the Kings were in control, so, anyway, the United Order dissolved. Great grandpa Emery was maybe 8 years old when it dissolved, but his dad, Volney, one of Thomas Rice King's son, and several other boys moved up the Sevier River into Antimony or on Coyote Creek. Volney's set up a homestead there, which is now under Otter Creek from what I understand. But Volney, and they had a few cows, but they were hard to make any money off cows, cause there was nowhere to sell them, you just eat the beef, milk the cow, just surviving, so they'd go up on, Volney and these boys would go on the Parker Mountain and catch wild horses, and bring them home and train them, and then you could sell them and get some money from them, so that was a better deal, so he did a lot of that. When Emery was 15 years old, he started herding sheep for a guy out of Panguitch. He herded down at the Pariah, on the Pariah River, Pariah country, which is outside of Bryce, outside of Tropic. And he herded there for several years. The second year, so Emery was the oldest son of Volney and Eliza Sivet King. Started herding sheep at 15 years old. At that, when I think it was 1895, the Cleveland Panic hit, which is, I didn't know what it was, I had to Google it, but Grover Cleveland was president, and there wasn't enough money, and he wouldn't print money, so the banks ran out of money, so the sheep herder couldn't pay his help, so he ended up paying great grandpa Emery in sheep at 50 cents a sheep, so that's how we got in the sheep business. This just a picture Dad had of an old sheep camp. It's probably in the 40s or something. I thought it was pretty cool. Horses there, got nose bags on, an old truck, old camp. When Emery was herding sheep, they were pack horses and tents. So Emery, well, it was kind of interesting. He was probably 16. He come home from herding sheep, and he had a few cows then. And he come home to Antimony. Come home and found out that his dad had been called by Brigham Young to go to Bighorn Valley in Wyoming and settle that country, which Cowley, Wyoming is what the town they mentioned. So his dad sold the farm, sold the homestead, took Emery's cows and his, and went to Wyoming. So anyway, Emery over the years, he leased sheep, he bought some sheep, he partnered with a guy named John Hiskey. He also partnered with some other people, some of them being his brothers, Edmund and Leland. But by the early 1900s, he owned 2,000 to 3,000 head of sheep. And back then, there was no BLM or Forest Service, so you would go find rangeland and you would go graze it, so he and, John Hiskey had these sheep, and so they'd go from the Pariah River up on, the Boulder Mountain and even up on top, and one year they were trailing towards the top and they stopped on Boulder Creek up, above Boulder town. So Boulder people, the ranchers, the men in Boulder were cattlemen. There wasn't any sheepmen. And this herd of sheep was setting up there on their main drainage into the town, and so they talked to the sheriff, Constable Lyman, and said that those sheep were defiling their water. So he went up there and arrested these two sheepmen. I think they had some hired help that stayed with the sheep, but they hauled them into Boulder and threw them in jail or whatever they had for a jail back then. So Constable Lyman, his name was Amnesty Lyman Jr., he had a couple of daughters, and they were given the task of taking meals to these sheep herders, dang sheep herders in jail, these prison.
I think I know where this is going.
Anyway, as it turned out, they eventually went to court in Panguitch. The sheep herders hired, well, they had I think he was probably an uncle, Sam King, or, anyway, they won the case, and so they were able to get back to their sheep herd. Funny thing is that both these sheep herders, John Hiskey and Emery King, married these sisters. John Hiskey married Mary Lyman, and Emery married Mariah. So he and Mariah had 9 children.
Grandpa
This
Hugh.
is Grandpa Hugh. He was the oldest of the 9.
Does he look like Alex? I see resemblance.
What?
Do you?
Anyway, found that picture. I thought that was pretty cool. But he's reaching in his pocket for a sack of Bull Durham so he can roll him a cigarette. Pretty much everybody smoked back then. So Hugh, born in 1905. He died in 1984. Is the oldest son of Emery and Mariah, our grandfather. Neil and I's grandfather, Lonnie Joseph's great. Anyway. He married Fern Pace in 1928. So they were both old maid. She was old maid school teacher. She was 24 and so was
Yeah.
So between Emery and his brothers, Leland and Edmund, and other partners at times, and then his sons, Hugh, June, Cecil, they was basically the King Brothers operation on the Henry Mountains. This is picture, similar picture to that one before. This is sheep going down Trail Canyon to get into Trachyte, and then they go up Trachyte and climb out into Maiden Water Sand. They ran on the Boulder Mountain with their sheep, east side of the Boulder. Actually, they run out west too. I think Grandpa talked about a time where Emery's sheep were going out here, and turned out they had mange. And if you go out to the mill field and you look right in there at the side of the road, you can see a little row of rocks that are about this wide, rocks on each side, and that was an old dipping back. the Ranger made Emery hippie sheep. And Grandpa said it's kind of funny that Elliot Clark was the Ranger. He says, Emery, you're gonna dip these sheep, not for my sake, but for your sake and for God's sake. You're gonna do it. So anyway, he dipped the sheep, and they had to dip them twice, a week apart to kill the mange. So there's a picture of Grandpa Hugh. Not sure where he is. Looks like the Henry Mountains, maybe Star Springs. Loading them. Got that state-of-the-art truck and those brand new water tanks, pumping water to haul water to his sheep. Okay, you guys have been here, most of you. This is the cat ranch. Do you recognize that? From on top of the hill where the road comes over the top. Looks a lot different now. See the tents off to the left? They've got quite a crew there. It's spring of the year. That's where they sheared their sheep. Those are the shearing trails that are all falling down now. You go up there and they were pretty new. Those boards are pretty fresh. I don't know what year it would have been. This is the inside where they had stalls. They run the sheep in and the shearer would grab one, and they had harnesses for the shearers that were counterbalanced, so they'd lean over all day shearing sheep, but it didn't take much to raise back up because they had counterweights on these harnesses, so they could shear more sheep a day. But that was kind of a state-of-the-art shearing shed. This is another part of the shearing shed. That tall part there is where they'd shear them, take the fleece, tie it up, lock it out, and drop it down there's a runway up here, and then there's this wool sack hung up right here, so I think they've got it covered so it won't get rain in it, but you bring the fleece, drop it in that bag, and then it'd turn out like this. Then somebody, lucky person, would jump down in the bag and tromp the wool to get it tied.
Dennis remembers doing that.
And you're stuck there till you get enough wool
You get ticks
to
on
high
you
enough
and
to get out.
whatnot.
And they probably throw you back down again, Dennis?
It's full of ticks.
But anyway, it was quite an operation there at the cat ranch.
So, when they got it all done, what'd they do with the wool? That's 6,000 head of sheep's a lot of wool.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
cut off bags.
the wool they could haul up to Salt Lake or wherever. So this is Grandpa on his brand new Ford tractor, Grandpa Hugh, stacking that wool and then loading it. You can see the K brand on it, Lady K or V-Bar or whatever that is. But the funny thing is, Emery, when he was in the sheep business, they didn't have any way to sell wethers or lambs, the wether lambs for meat. I mean, there wasn't any trucks. The nearest train was in Grand Junction, Colorado. But the wool was valuable, so they'd run the wether sheep right along with the ewes, and just because it was economical enough to just shear them and get what they could for the wool. Plus, they had no way of really shipping them anywhere. So eventually, they ended up making a herd of wethers and driving them to Grand Junction to the rail head, and then send them back to Kansas Kansas to get processed. But one year, Emery, they leased some land from some people in Colorado, and they took a big herd of wethers and run them over there all summer, and then drove them to the railhead and sent them back to Kansas to be processed, to be slaughtered. But I thought it was interesting. So you get a ewe that twins every year, you can grow a herd pretty fast if you're not taking any wethers out. Okay, this is up Pine Creek, the old sheep corrals there. I'm not sure who that is, but I just kind of thought I'd show you Pine Creek, the ranch up
That's
here.
up here, yeah.
Yeah, right up here. Some more. That old fence line to the right, it's still visible. It's about gone, but this corral here is now part of the stackyard. When I was a kid, so 65, we got out of the sheep business, went to cattle. So prior to that, and I was born in 58, so I might have been 6 or 7. And I was out there with the sheep. Old Curly King grabbed me, and another guy grabbed the ewe, and they put me on it, turned it loose. Anyway, that's my first taste of sheep manure. When I fell off, I was screaming, and I ended up with a mouthful of it. That's about the last taste of sheep manure, but I've tasted a lot of cow manure since then. Camille, who's that?
Ken and Verland, who's that?
Yeah, Ken's in the black, the red hat, I'm in the black. We've just been checking our sheep up there on daylight. See the sheep up on the top of the hill there. Oh, this is over to Bicknell. They used to have a community corral there where M&D's parking lot is. There's scales there, that's some lambs that I'm sure they took over to ship. Get them weighed and get shipped. So, the King brothers, which were Emery and
This is a video.
Emery, Hugh, Edmund, Leland, and then the other brothers, Emery's kids, Hugh, June, and Cecil. They split up in 1947. You got the Boulder Mountain, the east side of the Boulder, and the east side of the Henry Mountains, and actually some permit on the west side of the Henrys. You got sheep permit. June got cattle permit on the east side of the Boulder, and he got the west side of the Henry permits, and these were cow permits, and he got what we call the South Creek Ranch, they call the King Ranch now. Grandpa Hugh got the Cat Ranch and the Crockett Place. Cecil and Emery got the Grass Ranch permits, and the Grass Ranch permit, that was quite a big ranch. They had 2 big herds of sheep over there, plus the ranch. Emery bought it from his brothers. Edmund and Leland were part of that, and Emery had bought them out. So and Cecil ran that, and eventually it was sold. But it's kind of on the north side of the Cashuran Reservoir, from what I understand up in there. It's running up in the booby hole permits and stuff. So Jack, growing up, he went to the sheep herd when he was 14, kind of like all of these ancestors. Spent a lot of time out there, sheep, herding sheep, moving camp. He was drafted, went to the Korean War, come back, went to Utah State to college. He met mom up there. She was working for the college as a secretary. Anyway, they were married in 1958. Mom moved down here and dad was pretty much taking over the ranch. There's a couple of pictures of him. So we converted the cattle in 1965. So, and this gotta be in the 70s. I think I burned down the milk barn about then, and we built the cattle shed after that. You can see the roof of it.
And what was she doing?
I was playing Indians, cowboys and Indians. I had to build me a little fire in a lean-to right there. Of course, it had that much cow manure in it, and I didn't know cow manure smoldered on. Anyway, I put it out, but it didn't work. In the middle of the night, we woke up to the milk barn on fire. You're getting a little more than what I told them other people. Yeah, so we got converted in 1965. We still trailed from the east side of the Henrys to the Boulder Mountain. This is a picture of us leaving South Creek Ranch headed for the Boulder Mountain. We'd start out at South Creek, we'd pick up our herd. We had 500 head, June had another 200 head, so we'd end up leave there with 700 head of cows and little baby calves. It was crazy. So we'd get to Oak Creek Canyon. That was the easiest, the only way to go up onto the east end. You could drive another 10 miles to the north and go up Pleasant Creek Canyon, but then you'd have to drive 10 miles back to where you needed to be. The old timers had drilled and dynamited a trail out of the slick rock. Well, that's what that is. That's the cows. It was a single file trail most places. They had to, and what we would do is somebody would take a bunch, the lead, maybe 10 or 15 head, get them across, and then you'd hide behind one of those bushes, let these other cows come, but keep the ones that are already through from going back, because they couldn't go both ways on that little narrow trail, and those cows would be thirsty, and they'd come get them a drink, and then they'd say, "Oh, where's my calf? I gotta go find it." So somebody had to be right there to keep them from doing that. There's another
Yeah, that's the better
shot.
picture.
That's the cowboys bringing the tail end. It was a dangerous trail. We've had cows, usually every time calf would fall off. They're not used to slick rock. They get out there, everything's fine, then they spin out and slide down. And if we were lucky, it killed them. If it didn't, if they had a broken leg or something, we'd have to go down and take care of them. If they were alive, we put a rope on them. If they were okay, there's one little crack on down the way that you could, somebody pushing them on and some pulling, we could get them up out of there. There was one cowboy that they got across the way, and his horse started acting up, started bucking, threw him off, and then started bucking back across this trail running, and it went off the side. They went down to get the saddle, said that horse split open like a watermelon.
Mm.
Yeah, it's pretty dramatic. So we trail them there and then we trail them home. This is coming right down into, the coyote benches there. You see the farmer's knob there and down towards the Trackout Ranch. This, we wean the calves at South Creek, haul them out in 2-ton trucks. There's a lot of clay on the roads. A lot of times they'd have to wait till the frost set up the roads where they could drive out, so a lot of times they'd try to drive out early in the morning or even at night. But this is usually a fast trail. These cows, we'd wean the calves, they were through balling, and we'd go up over the Henrys and down into here, down into our winter range. So in the summer, we'd go from the east end of the boulder to the top of Boulder. This is the cattle going up the Bounds Point Trail. Ours were about ready to top out. That's me on old White Cloud. He was left over from the sheep herd. He was a good old horse, been used a lot. Big stout, big horse. Either that or I was little, but he was like, it looks like I wasn't very big too, so. So then when you get on top, this is what she's fine, flat. You're at 10,000 feet elevation there. I think that's Don Taylor and Emmett Clark and probably Ken in the red coat. I don't know who the rest of them are. But yeah, Ken and I, we went on the desert the first time to gather cows. I was 8 years old and he was 9, 10 maybe. Well, 9, he's 14 months older than me. Anyway, that's when we started cowboying, and then when I was 13, I'd live with a cow hand out in Morrill on the east end, taking care of the cattle. So, anyway, yeah, it's been quite a journey. So, when you got on top, after you got your day's work done, you could go fishing. This is Jack fishing up there. I think it's Best Lake, but I'm not sure.
That's him.
Yeah, I don't know. It says on the slide, Jack.
Okay.
So that's all I know.
I'll take your word.
But he was pretty skinny back then. That's before he got fattened up. Yeah, we fish at Crater Lake, Best Lake, Horseshoe Lake. So Hugh retired in '67, and Jack took over as general partners with Dell and Jim. And Jack was kind of always aggravated because he was going to buy Hugh out. He was going to buy Hugh out, and last minute, Grandpa Hugh said he didn't feel right in not letting the other brothers have part of it. So, and they became a partnership. Jack was controlling. He owned 50%. The brothers owned 25 each, and then there was a stipulation of Shirley would get so much money. Partnership was called Jack King and Company. What else to tell you? Anyway, yeah, and the brothers, both Dell and Jim, they didn't stay with the ranch. They each had their own jobs. They worked for basically government job, retired with good retirement. Jack, he stayed on the ranch. It was tough. They ended up selling the cat ranch. Ended up selling the permit they had on the west end to Charles Oliphant after he bought Sandy Ranch. They had some land called the Teeple Place they sold because it was tough. They had a hard time making a go of it, and they had debts with. Anyway, basically Dad a lot of times didn't take a wage. He just pretty much, they probably kind of lived off what Mom made at the Forest Service, so. So this is a picture of, Terry's taking the picture. We just got back to camp after a day ride, so after we were married, we came, we'd come home in the summer and camp on the east end and move cows, we had to keep them on one side or the other of an imaginary line. One year one way, the next year the other. So this is just a day in the life. I've got Jody in front of me. Casey's on the other horse. She's in front of Terry. So I don't know. That would have been like in '86 or so. Jody's 3 even. So we started our kids out early. Casey started at 2 years old, and Jody 2, about that. So I thought, Grandpa Emily and you and Jack started early, but we started ours earlier. So we bought the ranch in 2002 from Jack. That was after the partnership with his brothers had been dissolved after the death of Grandma Fern. That was a stipulation. So we named the ranch Jack King Company LLC in honor of Jack and Bonnie and their legacy. We were sitting there, what are we gonna call it? And so we decided, knowing what Jack and Bonnie had put their lives into, that we ought to name this, keep that name on the company. I did this to the other kids a little bit ago. I just said, in the younger days, Timber started laughing. He said, "You're so long-winded on these others, you only say that on this one." Anyway, that's Terry and I. Probably before we bought the ranch, but been a good partnership. And there's Jesse. Miss him every day. So this is Trackeye Portable Corral. You guys have all been there. When I did the presentation, I said this is what happens when you marry a girl from Idaho whose family's raised Black Angus all their life. See what we had before, the Herefords, and now this is where we're at. There's some other reasons too. So we made improvements. This is our well out to the Trackeye Point. It's always not all fun and games. This is a bunch of cows in the slot canyon.
Look at that shadow.
We've had some nightmares with those. At one time we got 3 out and had to shoot like 13 that were too weak to get out. So anyway, so here we are. I don't know, that's an old picture. That cow's a 700 number, so. But that's Trackeye Trail again. This is, I just wanted to see pictures of today. This is got a hydraulic chute and a good pushing up alley. These are calves that we weaned this fall. This is our crew now, I told him. Ride yellow horses, but I said you gotta be careful, cause sometimes these people, Nicole bonded with that calf, I didn't think he was gonna give it away from her. This is true. Last year, that's just, anyway. That much more low they should have put in there. And you gotta watch out, cause these dang cell phones, everybody's got a camera, you can't get any shit. Well, this is a picture of the old timers. Emery and Mariah on the right. On the left, it's Jim and Sadie Pace, Grandma Fern's parents. There's a picture of the old timers, Emery in the middle, you on the left, and then Roe Pace is the most left. The right of Emery is Guy Pace, and then James Pace.
How tall is Emery?
That to be continued, 6th and 7th generations coming up.
There you go. Awesome.
No, that's it.
Clap,
Very
clap, clap.
good. Thank you.